In this video, we'll discuss how lack of wrinkling, especially after the age of 40, often points to emotional repression, lack of joy, and self-centered tendencies. Enjoy. Hey everybody, so today I'm at a park with my daughter and filming is happening here, not at a park. Well, we're technically at a park, but it's very noisy with a lot of kids, so I'm going to be in the vehicle doing it for this go-round. And in today's video, we're going to talk about lack of wrinkling and what that means at an emotional level. So here in the West, a lot of times when we think about wrinkling, people don't want to wrinkle. They equate that with aging, and we are sort of an age-phobic culture here in America. We don't like to age. Aging in general sort of freaks us out, and that's not a good thing. Part of the natural order of the face is to wrinkle. You cannot get away from it. To hide the wrinkles also can, technically in theory, because it's a two-way street with the face, you can sort of repress emotion. And that's really what I want to talk about when we see a lack of wrinkling, especially over the age of 40. So when we see not much wrinkling on the face, and you don't need a lot, you don't need to look like, cracked and creviced for this to be functional or good for you, but you do need to be developing some kind of wrinkles. And if you're not developing wrinkles past the age of 40, what that often means is emotional repression. This is very problematic in the context of life nourishment, what they call yang sheng in the East. This is not a good thing. The free flow of emotions, how well our emotions circulate through our body, how well we digest them, how consistently we feel them, and how temporal our emotions are sort of the healthy metrics for what we're trying to do. You don't want to sit with emotions for too long. This is why there's that saying in psychological circles that conflict avoided is conflict amplified. So if you have conflict and you decide to not find a resolution and you decide to dig your heels in and just stay in your position for a long time and you don't resolve it with the person, that conflict will amplify. So what I'm getting at here is that when we don't see wrinkling, it's a sign of emotional repression. And when emotions are repressed, life force is blocked. This is where things really start to break down. The other thing you have to think about when we're looking at the face and you're seeing lack of wrinkling is it's sort of like stoicism. So if you're not familiar with the Stoic philosophy, it's about regulating your emotions, staying calm, being centered, and really attempting to use reason and logic first before you deploy your emotional terrain as a means to decide, as a means to navigate life. So stoicism has its place, and sometimes we're going to be very emotional, and sometimes emotional and intuitive decisions are great. But the thing to think about in relation to this is when the face is not showing wrinkles, we're not seeing a lot of wrinkles, that means the person is not fully, really, totally dynamically expressing as much as they probably should be. So when you see lack of wrinkling, this can be sort of like a pressure cooker for emotion. This can be a person, and this is not explicitly, it's not everybody, but what I've seen over the years is people that are easily triggered, easily offended. They are people that really sort of are sitting on their emotions, they're quiet, and they expect a lot of the world to shift around them because they don't express and therefore they don't regulate their own emotions very well. So there's kind of an extroverted push into the world, the outside world, about how the world should cater to my needs a bit instead of the opposite, instead of us sort of navigating and understanding that the world is a complex place. That lack of emotional expression can lead to these types of personality rhythms. And it's very difficult to deal with collectively. And whether you're going through it, whether you're dealing with someone emotional repression and lack of fire, that fire deficiency is not good. The other thing to think about is that when we wrinkle, this is a sign of the fire element being active. It's basically like turning on. When we wrinkle and we smile, that means that emotions are being felt. That means emotions are being carved into the face. And so if we're not seeing wrinkling, that means emotions are not being carved into the face. And typically, they are being processed too much on the inside. There is too much introspection. There is too much of that internal pressure cooker vibe. So again, I'm not saying go make yourself wrinkle and make horrible faces in the mirror or anything like that. What I'm saying is that you need to express, smile, laugh, and feel life for your face to start showing appropriate wrinkles. Now, some people have asked the question, what about Botox? What about these fillers? What about the things that people do to reduce wrinkles, to get rid of wrinkles? All of that. There are lots of studies on why Botox and these things can be very problematic for the body. There was an interesting article I read that a client of mine actually brought to my attention. It was talking about the excessive use of Botox and how it actually impedes people's ability to empathize with others. It impedes their ability sometimes to put themselves in other people's shoes. That lack of wrinkling, the Botox, when it does, what they're finding is, for some reason, I'm not sure of the mechanism, if it's the actual chemical that's causing this, or it's because it's making the face too still. The face is a two-way street in the East. So when we express and when we feel, the face is going to move. And if we put something into our body where the face gets a little more still and a little more stoic and it's not moving, I found that very interesting, that in that article they were talking about, it actually impedes people feeling a bit. So sort of an interesting metric to think about, but just be mindful that you don't want to erase your wrinkles. You really don't. And there are some wrinkles that are more favorable in face reading. The joy lines in particular, getting some clear connected forehead lines, getting the nasolabial lines here, which are the purpose lines when we smile as we age. There are some good things. There are wrinkles that you have to be careful with. A lot of the ones that show up along the center line of the face, what they call the river of life, if you get vertical or horizontal wrinkles there, reach out to me. That's a good time to get a session and kind of reassess your life terrain. The horizontal lines that show up along this center line are less problematic. If they are deeply carved and vertical, those are called red flags. So the big takeaway here regarding all of this is, make sure that you are living life and you're expressing, because if we are not seeing wrinkling past the age of 40, something kind of visible, this is a metric for emotions not circulating well, and typically a person who cannot regulate their emotions very well, or are simply taking their emotions and sitting with them for too long. And again, emotions should be temporal. They should come and go, and that includes happiness. The only emotion that we should kind of try to find a baseline with is peace. That is the central place for the greatest longevity. And what that really points to is physical stillness and quiet. That's where we want to try to find our way back to, but we want to feel life and go through all of these things. So if you've got questions around wrinkling, face reading, any of what I've discussed, please put them down below. And thanks for your time.